Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar on addressing HR challenges in the new era, strategies for success. As we navigate through unprecedented times, the role of HR professionals has become increasingly vital. Today, we delve into key strategies to overcome the evolving challenges in the workplace landscape. From remote work to talent acquisition and retention, we aim to equip you with actionable insights to thrive in this new era. Let's explore together how to adapt, innovate, and succeed. Thank you for joining us. First thing first, we would like to inform you about the webinar agenda today. After my introduction, we will introduce you to the panelist session. We will have Dr. Consuelo Wade and Dr. Dennis to join us, and then they will give around 20 minutes time for their session, and then the question and answer will be after their session. And after the question and answer, we will have the wrap up by our Executive Director, Mr. Warawe Cholasin. And right now, I would like to introduce you to our resource person. First, we will have Dr. Dennis Covier, a renowned keynote presenter, trainer, and consultant with a distinguished career spanning over 35 years. As a best-selling author of 24 books, Dr. Covier brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the table. His inspirational messages and cost-effective, impactful solutions have helped numerous organizations tackle complex talent management and leadership challenges. Get ready to be inspired and gain valuable insight from Dr. Covier on the 2024 HR trends adaptations. Meanwhile, we are delighted to have Dr. Consuelo Wade, an esteemed professor specializing in human resource development at the University of Houston in the United States of America, with a focus on learning dynamics, mergers and acquisitions, and global HRD strategies. Dr. Wade has made significant contributions to the field. Her decades-long experience and expertise empower organizations with a practical insight and effective solutions to navigate HR challenges successfully. So join us to learn from a seasoned professional dedicated to advancing HRD practices. Before we join, we would like to inform you about the ground rule of the webinar. At the end of the sessions, we will have question and answer. We would like you to identify to whom you would like to shoot your question to, Dr. Consuelo or Dr. Dennis. That will be very helpful. And if we are not able to address all the questions due to the numerous number of audience, we will address you afterward. And after the question and answer, we will send you the link of the evaluation. We would like to know your reflection and how you feel about the webinar. But this is very important. Please make sure that you give your correct name, full name, your name and surname in the questionnaire, because it will reflect in the in the certificate that will be sent automatically after you fill the evaluation form. And our team will send you the link after that. And we're not holding you any longer. We would like to pass the stage to Dr. Dennis Covier to start his session on the 2024 hours HR trend on adaptation. Thank you very much.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry about that. I thought someone else was going to say something. Very good. Well, thank you so much for the introduction, and hello and good morning to everyone, and good evening to some of the people that are on this side, in the North American side of the world. It's amazing. I understand that there's people coming from 14 plus countries throughout the region, which is fantastic. And I've got lots to share. I'm very delighted to be invited, and thank you so much, Dr. Rahul, and your entire team with AIT Extension. It takes a tremendous amount of effort to organize these things, and I'm really looking forward to being part of this. So without further ado, I'm going to just share my screen here, so everyone should be able to see that okay. So my conversation or topic, if you will, is going to be talking about these trends, the trends for the year, HR trends. And, as time marches on, as we entered into 2024 with the pandemic behind us, it's no surprise everyone's feeling it. It seems whether you're in business or nonprofit organizations, it seems that we have the pressure of having to do more with less resources. Then you throw in the global pandemic, and the world was, as everyone knows, was taken upside down. So I wanted to theme this talk with you right now, this presentation, as adaptation. So on this, I'm going to talk about 10 specific trends I am seeing around the world. I work in 60 plus countries. I as a consultant, as a speaker and a trainer, I work very closely with very, small, medium-sized and very large Fortune 500 businesses. And I'm seeing these trends happening over and over again throughout the planet. So without further ado, I'm going to share these trends with the sort of theme, if you will, of adaptation. So looking at the Charles Darwin quote here, I mean, to me, it really sums it up where HR practitioners are today. The only thing that stays constant is change. And the only way that we can survive change is to learn how to adapt. And that, that was true 200 years ago, and it's absolutely true today. So what I did is, as a way to try to remind people of the essence of adaptation, I'm actually creating an acronym with the word adaptation. And within each of these 10 letters will be 10 different trends that I am noticing around the planet. So the first one, the A, is really about artificial intelligence, hence the picture. It's the artificial intelligence is the elephant in the room. Absolutely. So what we're talking about here is it's as if you lived in a cave if you didn't know that artificial intelligence is actually transforming the way everyone does everything, just about, from children doing research to writing down their homework reports for high school to HR practitioners. When you look at artificial intelligence, you look at every single touch point throughout the dynamics of human resources development, from early stages of even determining what the ideal candidate should look like, and then going out and broadcasting your messages of recruiting, attracting great people, all the pre-screening selection processes, everything. So much of this has been supported through AI. And it's interesting to note now that there is this notion called the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer. And some of you may have seen this in the news. This was only a week and a bit ago. So this was mentioned on March 28th of this year. So Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, says, that every U.S. federal agency must hire a chief AI officer. So when you think about it, the Vice President of the United States is mandating that for every single U.S. agency, they have to have a C-suite executive that's going to lead the charge on adapting and leveraging AI. So, if anyone had any doubts whether this is real or going to stick around, it absolutely is going to stick around. The key is, how do you leverage it effectively? So on that, we're going to transition now to the D. So the D in this is really about developing right brain skills. So right brain skills to leverage AI. So some of these skills, for example, they come in many forms. For example, your creativity, innovative thinking, holistic thinking. In fact, empathy. Empathy comes under that category, the ability to empathize with other people, emotional intelligence. These are all things that, quite frankly, AI doesn't do. AI is really focused on left brain thinking. So the key is, and this is the exciting part to me, that the rudimentary processes, a lot of those base level things, tasks and processes, can and should be done by AI, which frees up the creative mind of HR practitioners to bring more value added. I'm going to share a specific quote here that I thought was very interesting. So Jeremy Campbell says, anything involving emotional intelligence is unlikely to be replaced. Tasks at the bottom end of the value pyramid will become automated. See, so to me, this is exciting. A lot of people are fearful about this, but I think what it does is it takes a lot of the mundane, it takes a lot of the drudgery, if you will, of so many of the tasks. It automates it, and in many ways makes it much more consistent. When you're talking about the employee experience, consistency is so important, that you're true to your employer brand. So I really think that leaning into AI to solve those issues is definitely to the advantage of the organization. And again, while freeing up more time and energy to do the more creative right brain thinking things that are going to have much more impact. For example, look at, again, every single touch point, as I said earlier, within human resources is being impacted by AI. But think, for example, conflict resolution, working on a cultural change, looking at diversity and inclusion programs, looking at your succession plans, creative training and development, onboarding with heart. These are things that require professionals to really lean in and leverage right brain thinking and skills. So what's happening, of course, is if that's the reality, what I'm seeing with my clients around the world is they are doubling and tripling down on their investments to make sure that their people are well versed and well trained in these areas to rise to the occasion. So the next letter here is the A. But it's about agility. Now, agility is one of those buzzwords. So many people use agility, okay? But it is so important. See, agility, when you have an agile organization with agile people within the organization, first of all, the individual who is agile will remain relevant and competitive within their role, which means they're going to bring a lot of value, so they're not easily going to be replaced. And if you surround yourselves with a team of agile people, you're going to have a competitive advantage over the competition. Your relevance will remain stronger, and you're going to have a more competitive advantage. Just to share a thought here from The Economist, the fear of obsolescence. Again, it's the fear of being left behind is driving a large spike, an increase of spending and investing within HR into career development, soft skills, and right brain skills. So this is an area that we're seeing huge uptakes around the planet. And again, if you want to remain competitive within your sphere, within your own sector, these are areas to literally think about and make wise training and development investments. This is an interesting circumstance. So we call this the productivity paradox. This is the P of the word adaptation, okay? So in the past, in the recent past, there has been a number of different technological advances, and there's been little spikes of productivity, and then it slides back, little spikes and it slides back. So that when you look at the trajectory in many, many sectors around the planet, what we're seeing is that there has been a very flat productivity curve in many areas, and this can be very frustrating. One of the things, and I didn't create a slide for it, but I'm going to share another word with you because I think HR is uniquely positioned to help out on this. For example, if you write the word down profit, this is another acronym, but think of the word profit, P-R-O-F-I-T, profit, because all too often in the past, traditional wisdom was that your HR department was this place where you go throw money at. And, you didn't know. A lot of people in the C-suite, they don't really understand HR. And so they're reticent to give a lot of resources. In fact, I wrote a book 15 years ago that says, stop spending money on HR. Instead, turn HR into a profit center. So I'm a huge advocate of investing into your talent management, to your people, to HR. However, HR practitioners need to be able to communicate at the C-suite level of how their initiatives, how the various projects that they take on are going to actually impact the bottom line. So let's go back to the word profit, this acronym. So the P in this stands for two things, either the problem that someone in HR has recognized is happening within an organization, or the profit that's a missed opportunity. It's missed profits because no one has actually seized this opportunity yet. So HR notices this. Now we go to the R. Once you've identified the problem or the missed opportunity, then it's important to actually track, well, what are the resources that are wasted because, we had this problem. And maybe it's an employee turnover issue. Maybe we don't have the right people or the right training, and we're missing out on market share. We don't have the margins because the people weren't trained properly. Whatever the case may be, we can look at a problem, and with enough time and energy, we can actually figure out the resources wasted. In other words, what it cost. Then we look at the O. And that's the opportunity. So the opportunity here is where I am a huge advocate of HR really stepping up and being a leader at the C-suite level and saying, we have not only noticed a problem, we've calculated the cost, the resources wasted, but we have identified an opportunity to solve the problem or to seize the actual opportunity that hasn't been seized yet. The F in this case is the financial investment. So what is it going to cost to solve the problem or to move forward and realize and capture that opportunity? Then we have the I. The I is the actual improvements that have been measured, that have been actually generated as a direct result of the investment made in this unique solution. The T, the last letter of the word profit is T, and it's the tracked ROI, the tracked return on investment. See, here's the thing. When HR practitioners, and I'm finding that my clients around the world that I have taught this how to do, and I share all sorts of case studies and examples, and I show them the methodology, how to actually use this system, they are seen in a totally different light by all other executives at the C-suite because they're seen as now business partners, which of course is how they should be seen. But one of the challenges is that unfortunately, and all too often, most HR practitioners have not been trained on how to necessarily think and communicate this way, or they haven't been mentored. So it's very important. So this is one of the biggest trends I'm seeing right now is HR really stepping up and showing value. So this is interesting, okay? 85% of employers who recently adopted AI report time savings and increased efficiency. Again, but somebody had to take the lead with that, and that would be invariably someone from HR. The next one. T, talent access versus acquisition. Traditionally, people of organizations are trying to acquire talent. I think that's kind of missing the point a little bit. I think in today's dynamic, agile, and very fluid workplace, it's more about talent access. And to give you a specific here, I'm talking about a blended workforce, and it's becoming the norm, comprising of full-time employees, your part-timers, contingency workers, and your digital sort of gig workers. So you have a wide array of, yes, you have your main cohort of full-time and some part-time individuals, but you have an extension of individuals that you can easily call on, and it builds lots of elasticity, scalability, and agility within your organization. The next one here, as I'm winding up, and I'll be finished in a couple of minutes, but this is A. The ability to attract passive job seekers, the hidden workforce. Yes, of course, if there's someone who's unemployed and is the right person, you want to be able to attract them through your recruiting efforts. But the reality is, when you look at the vast majority of people, the vast majority of people are not unemployed. If they're really good, they're not unemployed, or they're not unemployed for long because they're so good. So what we want to do is we want to make sure whatever initiatives we're taking on, whatever we're doing as an employer brand of choice and everything else, it is really making sure that it resonates with that key group of people that are the passive job seekers. Forbes magazine, interesting stat, 93% of the top performers in their field found the job from being referred by someone they knew, not through a job posting. Now, I'm not against job postings. I'm not against that at all. And we've had some successes. But the fact remains that the best people overall majority, the best people are already gainfully employed or they're not unemployed for long. So you need to make sure you're cultivating. In fact, you can be easily leveraging AI for this through social media and any number of other approaches to make sure that you are communicating your brand value as an employer and you're making it easy and frequency. There's a frequency of share of mind of passive job seekers. Plus also, one of the key things is have a very strong formalized employee referral program. And not to have that is absolutely, in my opinion, my years of research, totally missing the point. So I just want to throw that out there. So this is another part, trust. It's building that mutual trust between your employee team, all your teammates, and the organization themselves. And again, the pandemic forced so many people to go virtual. In some cases, now they're coming back hybrid. And a lot of people have enjoyed and they see certain advantages of hybrid or even totally virtual workplaces. A number of companies are trying to mandate them back to work. Well, here's the thing. And I believe that a hybrid is if that's practical within your work situation in your industry, that what you want to do is you do want to bring people in from time to time to have that person-to-person connection. But what you want to do is you want to create commute worthy experiences, because a lot of people say, well, the traffic's so bad, it takes so long, I could be more productive at home with that extra hour that I spend going there in the morning, an hour coming back. So you have to create, and it requires some thinking, some real right brain thinking to create these experiences that are worthy for people to get back into the pattern of commuting to work. Trust and mutual respect is the foundation of any and all resilient organizations. This is no surprise, but when employees feel supported and they feel valued, they're way more open to take on new risks and try new things, these are all critical elements for innovation and growth. The I in human resources and the dehumanization of HR. And all I'll say about this is I'll use a little bit of humor. At the end of the day, we got to remember that it's called human resources, not inhuman resources. We've got to remain high touch while being high tech. As intelligent tech evolves, we still always have to remember at the cornerstone of what we do as HR professionals it's the people dimension. One of the things that's interesting when you look at agility and you look at resilience among organizations. There's so many elements that comprise of what makes a resilient organization. It could be, part of their proprietary approach. They got a great location. They've invested in technology, et cetera, et cetera. And these are all great things. But at the end of the day, it's the human beings that are the glue that hold all those investments together. So we can never lose sight of the human in human resources. And then this is so important. We're talking about organization sustainability record because, people care about the planet. The vast majority of people truly understand that we have finite resources. We have to take care of our home planet. And if you have a company, an organization that is not just saying this as some sort of idle, pleasantry or whatever on the website, but they actually mean it and they actually walk their talk, this will have a profound impact in attracting and retaining great like-minded people. Deloitte just recently shared this research. 87% of executives believe that a strong focus on ESG issues has a positive impact on the company's reputation and actually helps and retain talented employees. So, these are important issues. And lastly here, N, the last letter as I wrap this up, is for novel work-life synergy. Now, I didn't say work-life balance. To me, work-life balance is a great starting point. Work-life synergy goes beyond. It goes beyond just giving people enough time at home. It actually says, okay, as an employer within reason, what can you do to help the overall well-being of your teammates? Whether it's helping them through proper pay, obviously, dealing with inflation, dealing with childcare issues, also looking at issues of health span, not their lifespan, but the health span. Is there a strategies to promote healthy eating, active living at work and outside of work? If appropriate, do you do some sort of financial literacy education through work? It's these types of things that we take a novel approach and create a real synergy between those two balancing points of work life and home life that will really have a massive impact. And again, who should be driving this specific area? Absolutely, it's the professionals that are listening in right now. It's the HR professionals. Stephen Covey, old saying, this goes back probably 20 plus years, but a great quote. He said, the key for both organizations and their people is not to prioritize what's on their schedule, but to schedule the priorities. When we take the time to elevate the core priorities and we educate that of our people, we will do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. And with that, I want to thank you so much, and I will stop sharing, and I look forward to learning from Dr. Waite now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dennis. It's really insightful presentation that you have. And recaps of the day from your session is at the end of the day, we must remember it's human resources, not inhuman resources, as intelligent tech evolve. This is really great session. Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Consuelo Waite to give the insight of the HRD, Human Resource Management Development. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for taking the time out to connect with us this morning. I mean, for you this morning, for us tonight here. I'm actually in Houston, so it's amazing to see so many of you from Asia Pacific. I think I saw someone from Canada, and I even saw someone from the United States. So thank you, and I look forward to learning with and from you on the topic of challenges as it relates to HR. I teach at the University of Houston, and I teach dialogic change, and I also teach diagnostic or plan change to HR professionals. Subsequently, back to what Dennis shared earlier, the challenges, and I actually reframed the word challenge to opportunities. And subsequently, why I'm starting the conversation that we're having today with the concept of the mindset shift. So when we talk about HR, who actually, who is HR? We're talking about us humans that have decided to, work in the function of HR. And then we're also talking about HR as the organization within the business. The first thing I think for us HR professionals, as we think about how we negotiate, how we work, how we build, develop relationships inside and outside the organization, the first thing I think is significant to us right now is for us to pause and do some reflection around what is my premise as an HR professional, and then look at the whole inside the organization, look at the HR organization and ask the question then, what is it that we're offering the business? What is it that we offer customers? What is it that we offer our employees? I think that's a significant start to any possibility of being effective, of being successful in this amazing, complex, and Dennis talked a couple of, he offered some characteristics of the complexity that we're experiencing and the complexity in which we work. Subsequently, our socialization, what were we taught about HR? How did we learn about HR? And as a result of that, what language did we acquire about HR? What are some of the key metaphors, the key words that we use as we as we build relationships within HR or with the business, that's a significant reflection. Another piece of that reflection is, upon leaving whatever institution or institutions that continue to develop us, what happened to us once we entered the HR function in the respective companies that we work in? And we can take that back, that same question, we can take it back and ask that question of our personal organizations, our homes. What are some of the core metaphors, stories, narratives that exist in our personal homes? And also then take that same question and ask yourself, what are those narratives? What are those core stories that exist in our HR organization? Do that kind of reflection, because it is significant in how then we, to Dennis's point, how do we go about adapting to the multiplicity, and I'm changing the word, challenges to opportunities, because it triggers a different way of thinking in the mind when we're able to reframe and check in with our own language, with the words that we're using, as we talk about how we go about, helping, aligning, adapting with the business. So for me, as an HR professional today, you have to reflect on where you have been, because where you have been may have socialized you in a way that's not effective for where we need to go as HR professionals. There is a major shift, and one of the big shifts in the mind is the fact that we do not have the answers. Is the shift that Dennis also made reference to this, that we are first business professionals, second we're HR, and subsequently we got to ask ourselves, how much do we know about the business? How much do we know about where the business exists around the world? If it's multinational, transnational, what do we know about the context in which our company operates? Significant mindset shifts subsequently, and this concept of narrative therapy exists in just about every discipline. As a matter of fact, healthcare, medicine is also using it. And so that reflection on how we have been socialized so that we can reframe possibly the language we're using. And a good way to assess this is when you go back to work after this session, key in, listen. In your first meeting, listen to the language in use. Listen to the metaphors. Will someone today say, oh yeah, that's a quick fix. We can fix this. Or will someone say, that's an easy solution. I know how to fix it. I know how we will do it. Or a group of senior leaders deciding what the solution will be for, let's say, customer service professionals. Listen in to the language in how solutions are being devised, because that should give you a glimpse in the fact that the narrative, the way of thinking, remains in this place where there's the notion that the world or the space that your company is operating in is very simple. That language, those metaphors tell us that probably there is not a full understanding of what's occurring on the outside. So the first thing for us HR professionals, the opportunity that we have is to reflect, understand where our socialization has occurred, and then start practicing the reframing. It's not easy. It's a practice. Deep listening, reauthoring narratives, helping, and I'm going to get to this because it's part of helping your leaders think, because each one of us have been socialized in such a way that it foreshadows in some ways, it has influence in how we go about thinking, how we go about making sense of the spaces that we occupy. So to the point I made, that I then, instead of using the word challenge, because when you use the word challenge, it connotes, things that you need to maybe fix, or instead we have in front of us amazing opportunities as HR professionals. And to make sense of these opportunities that we have that are very different, what may be happening in Japan may be very different from what's happening in Indonesia, or they may be similar, but there may still be some contextual differences. So for HR professionals then, how do we make sense of what's occurring on the outside? An HR professional today is not someone that sees HR as an office. An HR professional is one that asks the question, what do I know about my company? What do I know about where my company is doing business? Subsequently, the HR professional needs to be a strategic positioner. To do that, you have to know how to make sense of the external space. A couple frameworks. I'm very sure most of you have heard about VUCA. Bani is there's an argument that Bani is better than VUCA because of the complexity that we're dealing with. Bani is more about us, and the mindset shift. Bani, the first word for Bani is brittle, and it's talking about the illusion that we have strength, that we won't be breakable. And again, that's a way of thinking, something that we need to shift, because in essence, we're not in that space where, we can control everything, or we can control how things will work or how things will occur. And again, you can be reflective of that by going back to work and think about the things you maybe thought about. This morning I have 5 priorities. And by the time you got to work, those priorities shifted. You didn't have, and I guess this connects back to A, which represents anxiousness, because we have the illusion that we can control. And again, it's a fallacy, because none of us have control of anything. The other piece, which is the other letter, which is N, which is about, talks about nonlinear. Again, it's a way for us to understand that as much as we strive to align, nothing will ever be in perfect alignment. A professor once described it as the organization as Jello, as gelatin, for example. It's always, shaking, it's always moving. So, and then the last one is incomprehensible, meaning that we don't understand everything that's occurring around us. STEP is social, technological, environmental, political, economics, and demographics. Another framework for you to step back and say, what does this look like for my company from an outside perspective, that then influences how my company adapts. How does it examine its own strategy, and then how does that then flow into the strategic capability that HR needs to lead inside the organization? So in essence, strategic positioning is saying, as an HR professional, everything you do internally is to build strategic capability so that the business can be successful, competitive, sustainable. You cannot do it if you don't know the broader context in which your organization operates in. You have to understand the industry, the global, the regional context of where you operate, because therein lies an amazing intelligence that you can use to make sense of what's occurring in your organization. And to the last point that I have on this PowerPoint, it is with that level of intelligence that then you can help your leaders think. Because as HR professionals, I guess, again, one of the other fallacies is that leaders, because someone has the title of a vice president, or because someone has the title of chief financial officer, that they know everything. They do not. One of the senior vice presidents on my board, for my executive program, he said, there is the tendency for employees to think that because we have these titles, we have the answers, or we know what we're doing. He said, we struggle. We are having the deep conversations to try to make sense of what's occurring. Hence, HR leaders with the intelligence that they can get from applying VUCA, from applying BANI, from applying STEP, they can then help their leaders think. Dennis talked about artificial intelligence, and to Dennis's point, I concur. We're now in the age of AI. HR is in an amazing opportunity. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a study right now looking at HR professionals. I'm looking at the HR organization and artificial intelligence. And to what Dennis shared regarding the Vice President Kamala Harris, in the interviews that I've conducted, the HR professionals have said, if we were wondering whether AI is significant to this organization's strategy, by the promotion of a senior leader into HR and AI. There are people now that have the title of HR and artificial intelligence. Some people have the title of strategy and artificial intelligence, but companies are ramping up very quickly. And the first thing they're doing is identifying senior leaders that lead the AI initiative. From an HR perspective, the key question right now should be, so if I'm in the business of building strategic capability, then what am I doing about AI as an HR organization, but also for the organization, for the broader organization? There are companies that are doing massive upskilling, and they're doing it at different levels. Level one, just focus on what is AI, what is the AI strategy for our organization, and just giving people acumen, giving people vocabulary. AI is now eliminating some of those transactional tasks from the HR professional. You know, the time when you had to do look at the employee engagement survey and then send up those results to the managers who, by the way, are responsible for employee performance. Now they have that data through AI. They can actually look at that data just in time, fingerprint. They can dissect that data depending on which employee they're looking at, or the groups of employee. So AI is, providing a lot of data, but here's the deal. Do the managers know how to do sense making? That's another major opportunity for HR professionals, upskilling managers then in how to use AI, how to make sense of it, and then how to immediately take action given the data, given the stories, the findings that the data is offering them. I don't know how many of you know, but if you should Google engineering prompt when we're done, and there are managers that are being trained just on how to do engineering prompt across the organization. So HR has an amazing opportunity when it comes to artificial intelligence. It's about setting a strategy for the HR organization, developing the HR professionals, and in addition to that, then building that strategic capability across the organization. Another opportunity is, again, going back to mindset, going back to how we have been socialized about the truth. So what is the truth? Who has the facts? And subsequently, then who has answers? We have now arrived at an era where most of the things we're dealing with are complex. There are some simple problems, and those require, you can quickly identify a solution. But a lot of what organizations are dealing with are complex issues. And as a result of that, we cannot just use data to make decisions. There was a time when we knew A and we knew B. Now we only know A. And for us to find B and for us to find C, we need the collective voice. And that's where the dialogic comes in. So we need to leverage every employee where possible to help us think. And again, go back to what the narrative is in your organization around giving voice to employees. I'll bring it home for you. When you go home this evening, be alert to who's asking questions, who has voice in your home, who's allowed to enter the conversation. Similarly, in the workplace, what is the narrative around employees? This employee has been here for 2 weeks, so he or she, they may not know. So subsequently, we will not ask them, or we will not give them time to contribute. If that's the narrative, if that's how you've been socialized, it's time to start shifting, because every employee, whether they've been there for 10 years, whether they've been there for 1 day, potentially has the solution that you're seeking. So where I'm going with this is the time of sitting in a room and say, this is how I'm going to do it, because this is my title and I'm going to tell them how to do it. That era has shifted dramatically. You now need to bring the multiplicity of voices. You now need to drop a generative question and then allow them to contribute to what that potential solution may be. A lot more experimentation occurring in the organization, and where there is success, then the amplification of that occurs. So quantitative data still has its place, but a lot of the things we're dealing with also need the voice, the dialogic, the bringing in multiplicity of voices to help you make sense. As a matter of fact, you hear a lot now, ask questions. People say, ask the right questions. That's a huge difference from the time when you could, you would just be a top-down organization and you would delegate, you would tell people what to do, how to do. Again, back to socialization, recognizing how leaders think. And the only way you can recognize that is to listen to the language in use, listen to the metaphors, listen to how they see the organization, listen through the words they use, how they see employees. As the HR professional, we're now entering the place of helping these leaders re-author their narratives, where they have a different way of speaking because the times have changed. And subsequently, then, there are absolutely, the strategies are not in a book, they're not in a manual, they're not in anyone's head. HR, the strategies exist by learning from individuals inside the organization, outside the organization. So my suggestion, it would be, ask yourself, how much do I know? How much do I know about the customers that we serve? The understanding and learning about the customers is not a marketing issue anymore. It is not a production issue. It's an HR opportunity. So how much do I know about the customers? How much do I know about the industry that we're in? How much do I know about the region? How much do I know about the global space that we're playing? I have a student who their company went through restructuring, and I could hear her in her language how much she was mourning the loss of the employees that were no longer in the organization. And I asked her, do you think that your CEO is a bad person? And she said, no. And I said, no, he's not a bad person. I said, if you just step outside and observe, listen to what is occurring in the market. And then she said, she says, I know that in Asia Pacific, things are slowing down. And that has impacted, what we're doing in our company. And that's, everybody operates that way. All companies operate. If they were not learning from the outside in, then they would not be in business. Subsequently, HR professional, also the HR organization has to be aligning itself with what's occurring from the outside, because then it tells them, how well they're doing in helping the business adapt. And the HR organization is in the business of helping building strategic capability. And that may be people, that may be process, that may be process, systems, culture. That's the strategic capability that the HR organization is in. And like I said earlier, you have an amazing talent. You use the word talent, you hired them, you spent time recruiting them, you looked at the universities that they went to, leverage that voice, give space for thinking. And again, align and adapt with the business, because in essence, that's the only way how you can keep what you do and your own title credible. As a HR professional. So I hope this has helped. But this is my story. This is my way of looking at HR opportunities. There will always be opportunities. If you reframe the word challenge to opportunity, it immediately triggers a different approach, a different way of thinking. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Consuelo, for your valuable insight and strategies to navigate the complexity of the modern workplace landscape. And just a quick note for all the audience, remember adaptation and innovation are key to overcoming challenges and driving success. And you can change the challenges to opportunity. And now we have quite a number of questions to both Dr. Dennis and Dr. Consuelo. So, if you have any question, please post in the Q&A box. Now we have 10 question and answer in the Q&A box. I'll start with the first question. The first question to Dr. Dennis. As you mentioned about employee referral program, will it not promote lobbying or unethical hiring? How can the company maintain democratic with this? This question is from Mr. Pokharel, Nepal.
Thank you. Great question. The quick answer, and then I'm going to give a little specifics. It's really about the maturity of the organization. So what I mean by this, and I'm not being judgmental, I'm not speaking negative, but if an organization is not adequately mature in its thought processes, in its inner workings, particularly within the HR realm, then it can very quickly lead to nepotism, favoritism, etc., exactly what this question is referring to. However, when we are disciplined as HR practitioners, understand that, look at it this way. To me, a highly mature organization, let's say there's 100 people, 100 employees that work at this fictitious company. If there is a job opening and I am in HR and I simply communicate, I send a WhatsApp, I put a notice on the lunch, the cafeteria, however I communicate that we're looking to hire someone for this position. If in our organization, we do such an exceptional job of engaging our people feel appreciated, welcomed, and valued. They feel appropriately resourced with various tools to do their job. See, by definition, what I'm describing is an employer of choice. So if that's the case, and if I just nudge the team and say, we're looking to get an accounts receivable clerk, okay, for example, what I would expect is everybody, 100 different people, to become the de facto recruiting army for this organization because they love the business. There's a real level of engagement. Now, just because everyone gets excited and thinks this is a phenomenal place to work and they start telling all their friends, their neighbors, their colleagues, their former classmates, all that does is it enriches us at HR with the luxury of choice. But this is where we have to be disciplined professionals. Just because we get inundated with wonderful candidates or applicants, I should say, to consider, we still have to take them through the proper process of understanding the dimensions of the job, weighing it appropriately against the various skills, experiences, etc., core competencies, and seeing who rises as top candidates. And again, we have to take that disciplined approach to go through the interviewing process to hire indeed that best candidate. So by having the best of both worlds, a highly engaged team that's consciously looking for great people, and again, maturity is the key thing. If your people are mature, they're not just going to go and invite their best friend who's maybe a lazy worker because they have professional pride. They do not want to recommend. They are mature individuals. They love the organization. They want to protect it. So they're only going to actually add to the rising of not just the quantity, but the quality of applicants. The key to all this, though, is two things. You have to have a highly engaged team. They're going to want to share the word that you're looking to hire. And secondly, you have to have the internal processes and disciplines to make sure that it's merit-based hiring. Thank you for the question. Great question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dennis. And then we have another question for you, sir. This question is from Indonesia and from Mr. Agung Sayatmo. And with the emergence of new generations in the workforce, such as Gen Z, what adjustments should HR make to recruitment, retention, and development strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different generations. And of course, with longevity, people living longer, generally speaking. And of course, the compression of time, we're having these generations that are quite different than the previous generations. I think it behooves not just HR professionals, but literally anyone in a managerial role should understand the nuanced and sometimes not so nuanced differences between the various generations. And we have to become multilingual. And what I mean by that is that we have to be able to be with comfort and authenticity, speak the language of baby boomers to Gen Z to millennials, and the list goes on. We have to do it in an authentic way. It's not enough just to use a couple of buzzwords in our recruiting messages. We have to, I call this reality immersion. We have to immerse ourselves in the reality of that demographic cohort. We need to understand what makes them tick. And with that in mind, if you're an older individual, yes, you should definitely. And I love, what Dr. Waite was saying about, even the brand new person who could be very, very young has a voice. We got to give them a voice. And if we're listening, and this is the rule, you may want to write this down, folks, but I call this the rule of 70-30. The rule of 70-30 is this, that we should be asking more than we're telling. And that kind of goes on the heels of what Dr. Wood was saying, was that, we've got to engage people and learn from them. Everyone has contributions they can make. But if we're on tell mode all the time, if we're always talking, anytime I talk, I'm not learning anything. But if I ask an intelligent question and I put aside my prejudgment and I open my ears, now I can learn. So why not deliberately what I would say, connect with those younger generations, and whether it's intern students, your younger employees, committee, whatever the case may be, but understand where they're coming from. Ask them, how do they want to be communicated? What words resonate with them? What particular social media apps are now the rage? Now, there is a big caution, though. I have to say there's a big caution. Yes, you want to understand the different demographic groups, certainly the young groups and all the other groups, because workplaces now have 4 or 5 different demographic groups represented. So we need to be multilingual with all groups. But one cautionary note, I have 2 daughters, for example. They're only about 2 years apart. They're both in the same demographic group, yet they are 2 wildly different human beings. So we need to be aware of the characteristics of that one particular demographic cohort, but we can't overly stereotype everybody and pigeonhole them. So how do we resolve that? Well, we lean into certain communications and messaging that will resonate with that group. But when we're meeting people, whether in real time, through social media, whatever the case may be, we take the time to ask intelligent questions and listen to the answers, because the beauty lies in the answers. The answers is where we learn what we need to learn.
This is really, really great answer. Thank you so much. And we have next question from Mr. I'm not sure, Ms. Nguyen Yen to Professor Consuelo. She posted 3 questions. She asked, the first one is BANI, an abbreviation for brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. I believe so. And then the second question of Ms. Nguyen Yen is, could you also share how to engage with the workforce effectively in today's fast-paced corporate world? Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. I'm not sure I understood the first part of the question.
The first question is like your abbreviation about BANI.
BANI,
Is
yes.
an abbreviation for brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. Is that
Yes, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible.
okay?
And
then
he just needs to Google it, and there is tons of articles on BANI.
okay. And the second question from Ms. Nguyen is, Could you also share how to engage with the workforce effectively in today's fast-paced corporate world?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first way of looking at it is defining then what is learning. So if you think about learning in organizations, what we are doing right now is about 5% of learning in organizations. And so every interaction you have is the lines between working and learning are blurred. And so learning is occurring 24/7. And subsequently, building that cognitive muscle with your workforce. Driving the narrative that I just said. Every interaction is a learning opportunity. And subsequently, if you're asking the question and you got the answer, then how did you personalize it? How did you take that answer and let it become yours? Key reflective question for the employee as a learner. And subsequently then, every time I have a knowledge gap, I need help with something, I have a question, I can leverage, if you do have, a technological infrastructure, a knowledge management system, AI, Copilot or Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT, and a lot of companies are now adopting them internally, and employees, have regulations around it. Employees can quickly ask questions and they access information. So there's the human behavior around learning, and then there is the archives, databases through which you can leverage it. And now you have cloud-based with Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT. So 2 easy ways is building the cognitive muscle, building that self-awareness that every interaction is a learning opportunity.
Thank you so much. And then we have quite a number of questions in Q&A box, and the time might be like beyond 10:30. This is like 10:44 already. If you are okay to stay with us to cover all the questions for a bit, sir, madam.
Yes,
Then,
we're good. I'm good.
sure?
I'm not answering for Dennis.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I'm actually fine, literally for about 16 minutes. And then unfortunately, I have to jump to a client call.
Oh, okay. So maybe a few questions, and then we will wrap this session up. For the question that we were not able to answer, we will try our best to answer most of the question by Professor Consuelo and Dr. Dennis, and then we will send to you afterward, and including all the most of the material, we try to summarize it and also send to you. The next question for both of you, and this one is from Mr. Dipendra Bikram Thapa from Nepal. Since we have adopted an inclusive approach in HRM, how important is the ergonomics in attracting and retaining the talents?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that for sure. There's a saying that I'm sure everyone's heard by now, that sitting is the new smoking. And the notion behind this, if you haven't heard this expression, is that given the nature of many jobs, and a lot of jobs involve lifting, outdoor working, whatever the case may be, but in the office environment, we're sitting more and more, and we're not. It's having an impact for our core frame and structure. It has implications on our health and well-being. It is very wise for progressive organizations to really lean into ergonomics, to educate, first of all, to educate employees on proper posture, on lifting techniques, on repetitive motion strains, supplying them with the right kind of seats and everything else. For example, if you notice, I'm going to move my camera. Look, I'm not sitting right now. I have not been sitting this entire time. Most speakers on webinars will be sitting, which is ironic because most speakers, when they're at a conference, are standing. So I deliberately lean into the norm of standing, which replicates. Again, I want to create the best possible experience. I know if I'm standing, my energy will be greater, my posture will be better, I'm going to project better, which creates a better learning experience for everyone, whether they were sitting in my office with me or in 14 countries around the world. So all that to say is it's something that when it doesn't have to be a very expensive proposition to embrace these notions and have ergonomic furniture for the office, but the implications on wellness, on reducing absenteeism, illness, overall resilience, health resilience, and mental resilience. The proof is there. There's an overarching amount of evidence that proves the point. This is a very smart ROI.
Thank you so much. And we have some question in common regarding the AI, and this question pointed to Dr. Consuelo. This one, since there are something in common, so I will just group the question. They have a question about the AI things. What are some potential challenges or pitfalls HR professionals may encounter when implementing AI in HR processes, and how can they overcome these challenges effectively?
I think most of I'm going to talk from referencing the study that I'm doing right now. Most of the companies are in that space of learning as they go. There's a lot of experimentation. I don't think it's just HR, but it's the entire organization. Security is a big question, a big issue. Everybody fears that, an employee accidentally drops the wrong document into the system and reveals, highly sensitive information. So I think that's one of the big, I guess, fears right now. So I don't know, Dennis, do you have any contributions around that? That to me is one of the big common themes that are popping up.
Yeah, maybe I'll give it with just a personal anecdote or story. So yeah, I've written a lot of books, and so I've helped a lot of colleagues, become published authors, and a little bit of a coaching thing. It's something I do as a side passion. One particular author that I'm working with right now, he was working on his manuscript, and then of course it dawned on him, hey, go to ChatGPT and go to Bard and a couple other of these AI writing platforms, and he just basically had a very core thesis in mind, and he just said, okay, give me 800 words on this. And before you know it, it spits out 800 words that on the surface look pretty good. And then he goes, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll ask another question. And before you know it, he starts, formulating so-called chapters to a book. Well, several problems with that. First of all, I would say this, in the context of him writing a book, he wants to position himself as a thought leader. The funny thing about being a thought leader, it requires you to think, not be lazy and rely on AI. So what I said to him was, stop doing that. Instead, come out, build a skeleton, a framework for your book, figure out your real core thesis. What are the key points you're going to back that up? What sort of personal stories, case studies, whatever you're going to back that up with? And then, of course, you can lean into AI to fill in, do some more research, whatever the case may be. Another problem that came of it, which I wasn't aware of, was that AI has a tendency of writing in a certain way. That particular writing style is not necessarily the cadence or is in line with an individual or a company's brand. So in this case, this guy's name is Abel. He has his style of delivery as a speaker and a trainer is very, energetic, and he speaks sort of a very common sense, sort of at a grade 9 level, not to insult his audience, but he's just very practical. The AI elevated his speech and took him out of his natural market. So again, this is just a personal example, but you can't, just because it's easy, leveraging AI can be very easy once you've cracked the code on how to ask it the right questions. However, it doesn't necessarily going to give you exactly what's going to fit your specific brand, your corporate culture, your way of thinking. So that is, to me, one of the very big concerns I have, that on the surface, first glance, can look great. But when you really, as a professional that knows the space, whatever the topic area is, you start drilling down to it. Oftentimes it's superficial, it's mismatched with the tone and cadence of your organization, and it's not aligned. And if it's not aligned with your core values and how you position yourself, it's not authentic. And if it's not authentic, it's not effective. So to me, again, I'm not against AI. I leverage into it. I use it, but I use it with a very large, not a grain, but a big block of salt. Not a grain of salt, a big block of salt. And I really challenge everything that I get back from AI before I accept it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would add that the great thing about it is, clearly every article you read, it talks about efficiency. Some of the HR transactional tasks, AI will definitely assist. And it's already doing that. For those that are using AI. So one of the key findings that has been showing up for us is efficiency, and that's what AI was made for, is to help. And so it's definitely reframing the HR business partner's role. And what
I would say on that, if I may, because I just want to echo your comments there. I think I 100% agree. On efficiencies, those sort of routine tasks, absolutely. But there is a caution on this, and that's the old saying from programming: garbage in, garbage out. And it's the same thing, it's like any other language. You need to learn the language of that particular AI platform, and using the right prompts will get you better output. Now, if you ask it the right way, you're going to get quality output, 100%. It's going to be super efficient. The challenge is most people have not yet figured out how to ask it for the right thing. Therein lies the rub.
Yes, and that's one of the upskilling that companies are doing. It's called engineering prompt, and it's teaching employees how to effectively ask the question. So
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so this is one last question, because I saw something similar question. They talk about DEI. The question is, how much of DEI is still important in HR post-pandemic? Clearly, has DEI morphed into nepotism? They believe that the DEI has become something else than its founding principle. So the question is, DEI is still important.
So the I of AI as in intelligence?
Maybe
diversity, inclusion.
DEI. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear it. No, the audio went bad. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So I usually ask the question, then tell me who the customers are. And then that should inform, what the workforce then looks like internally and what value they offer, because DEI is not about diversity's first level, but then to the point we made earlier, that we're dealing with so much complexity and that no one person has the answer. And in essence, we need to leverage the multiplicity of voices. And we could add the word multiplicity and diverse voices. And because we all bring value, given our experiences, then we can help that organization think. We can help the leaders think. And you mentioned the word nepotism. I think we have to bring context into the conversation. And we have small companies, we have mid-size, we have large companies, we have public. and we have private, and all of these are governed by different regulations. And then we have culture. We have national culture. I come from a relationship-based culture. And so, yeah, I could see how knowing who you know then gets an opportunity in an organization. So I think Dennis mentioned the word paradox. And therein lies the polarities that we live with every day and that we have to navigate every day. So we will never ever be in any perfect space in any organization. We will always contend with these multiplicity of issues.
Thank you so much. And we have very insightful information. And then throughout the session from both Dr. Dennis and Professor Consuelo, and our apologies that we will not be able to address all the questions, but we will rest assured that we try to address most of the questions and then engage with you, and then please stay connect with us. And right now it's come to the wrapping time by our Executive Director, Mr. Warawe Cholasin. May I invite Sir Mr. Warawe Cholasin to close the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanya and colleagues, Dr. Kuvers and Dr. Wet. Thanks a lot for your time. Even you give time beyond our expectations, and you still entertain our audience on question and answer. This is really, we are happy and we are so grateful about your presentations today, your ideas, and actually this is giving us a lot of ideas how we are going to move forward in the directions of the HR professional training course, executive education, professional development, and continuing education. We are really looking forward to work with you, with your organizations in the near futures. Our colleagues and also myself will be getting in touch with you, because actually this is something that AIT Extension would like to have a platform of the international experience and the kind of Western ideas of how we can apply this into the Asia Pacific and also the other region perspective. Other than that, I would like to big thanks to the audience. I can see that we have over 150 audience participants in joining these sessions, and I can see a lot of questions where we can also bring about the next sessions by AIT Extensions, and perhaps Dr. Kuvers and also Dr. Wet will be again joining in the future whenever they have time. And the session today is not only give us the knowledge, but for you as the researchers and students and company professionals, this gives you a lot of research idea of how we can really study and also crack the reality of the HR perspective. As Dr. Wet and Dr. Kuvers say, it depends on the context. It depends on this design thinking process that we would like to decide for our company and organization. So with that, thanks Tanya, thanks Bahu, and thanks Warawan for organizing this one. And big thanks again to audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kuvers. Thank you, Dr. Wet again. Bye for now.